So today we are analyzing a reverse-engineered content strategy blueprint for KaMangyan Vlogs, focusing specifically on its viral hooks and storytelling retention framework.
Right, and it's a fantastic piece of work.
It really is a highly robust, deeply researched structural blueprint. But our feedback today focuses on synthesizing the currently compartmentalized sections to create a more fluid, unbreakable viewer journey.
Exactly, because you want that seamless experience.
Right. So to maximize audience retention, this critique will follow the natural life cycle of a viewer's experience, starting with the initial hook, moving into mid-video retention, and finishing up with the final resolution.
That sounds like a great roadmap.
Yeah, so let's dive right into those opening seconds. So a key theme running through this material seems to be the sheer power of the pattern interrupt and the emotional spike to grab attention.
Oh, absolutely. This strategy effectively lists powerful hook types, but isolates them from the vital immediate transition into the relate phase of the storytelling framework.
Wait, you mean they're treated as totally separate things?
Yeah, exactly. The weakness here is that the document outlines 3-second pattern interrupts, like unexpected visual shifts or, dropping a heavy object, but then it completely separates those tactics from the relate step.
Oh, I see.
Right, so the jump from a sudden, jarring hook directly into the core educational content can actually cause a viewer to drop off if they aren't given an immediate, logical context as to why this shock matters to them.
Well, let me push back on that a little bit, because looking at the specific target audience profile here, we're talking about OFWs, right?
Right, overseas Filipino workers.
Yeah, who are away from their families and terrified of falling behind. Their attention is incredibly guarded.
Oh, for sure. They are exhausted.
Exactly. So if you drop a heavy object just to make a loud noise and hijack their feed, and then casually transition into a vlog about walking to the market, aren't they going to swipe away feeling manipulated, like giving them what I'd call content whiplash?
Oh, that is exactly the risk. The brain registers a visual pattern interrupt as an anomaly, which triggers a micro spike in adrenaline.
Right.
But biological reality dictates that adrenaline metabolizes incredibly fast. If you don't immediately justify that spike by connecting it to their personal identity, their brain just dismisses the video as cheap clickbait.
Makes total sense. So how do we fix that?
My suggestion is to bridge this gap by establishing a transitional anchor immediately following the initial 3-second hook, ensuring the high momentum of the interrupt carries seamlessly into the relate section without losing their trust.
Okay, but how does a creator practically build that anchor? Because with a brand positioning of authenticity over polish, they can't sound like some slick television host.
Right. It has to feel organic. So for a concrete example, if you're using a curiosity gap hook, like dropping a heavy object, to interrupt the pattern, you should instantly pair it with the direct address technique outlined in the source.
Oh, how would that play out?
You drop the object and you immediately say, Kung ikaw, if you're an OFW terrified of falling behind, this dropped item is exactly what's happening to your savings.
Oh, wow. So you are taking the physical mechanism of the hook and making it the metaphorical embodiment of their psychographic pain point.
Precisely. This blends the visual interrupt with the pain point instantly rather than waiting for the relate phase later in the video. That's clearly laid out. I wonder, though, if we've considered how this plays out in longer videos.
Right, because if that transitional anchor does its job, you've earned their attention for the first minute. But adrenaline fades. How do you keep them from swiping away at minute 4 or 8?
Yeah, that mid-video slump is tough.
Let's look closely at the section discussing retention, specifically focusing on the reveal phase and the strategy of open loops. Planting questions early and resolving them late.
Well, relying solely on a single overarching open loop is insufficient for maintaining engagement across the longer form of vlogs required for platforms like Facebook and YouTube.
Really? Just one big question isn't enough?
Not for long form, no. The weakness here is that while one big loop is highly effective for a 60-second short, longer-form content will suffer from mid-video drop-off because the payoff feels way too distant.
Ah, gotcha.
The audience's curiosity just isn't sustained by a single promise made 5 minutes prior.
To give an analogy, it's like pointing to a bakery that is 3 miles away and expecting the viewer to walk all the way there on an empty stomach.
Exactly.
They might want the pastry, but eventually they get tired and wander off. They need breadcrumbs along the way. But I have to ask, how do you script that without the video feeling frantic?
Right. You don't want it to feel like a hyper-edited reality show. My suggestion is to implement a cascading loop structure, where smaller, micro questions are raised and answered sequentially throughout the reveal phase to constantly reset the viewer's attention span.
Okay, I like that. What does a cascading loop actually look like in practice?
As a concrete example, instead of just teasing one big reveal at the end of a 5 mistakes video, resolve mistake number 1 early. But the moment you do, immediately tease that mistake number 3 is a subtle habit every single family does at dinner.
Oh, so you're answering a question while simultaneously opening a brand new one?
Exactly. You lock their attention in small blocks. And you can tie this perfectly to the mid-video pattern breaks they already suggest.
Right, because the source material specifically calls out pacing over heavy visual effects. So when a creator uses a B-roll shift like cutting from the bedroom to the kitchen, it shouldn't just be an arbitrary edit, right?
Right. Is the connection between A and B fully established in the material, or is that an area to potentially bolster?
It definitely seems like an area to bolster.
Because if you align that visual shift with the opening of a new micro loop, like mentioning that dinner table habit exactly as the B-roll cuts to the kitchen, you're compounding your attention tactics.
You're stacking visual curiosity on top of narrative curiosity. That is so smart.
Exactly.
So, okay, they've followed these cascading breadcrumbs all the way through the middle of the video. They've made it to the end. How does this framework finish the job?
This is the crucial part.
Because, as I understand it from the notes, the argument here is that the storytelling framework simply ends with a resolve phase. But then there's an entirely separate section detailing psychological triggers like social proof, identity appeal, and reciprocity.
Right, and the resolution phase of the storytelling framework misses a critical opportunity to activate those listed psychological triggers to drive the audience toward the broader channel ecosystem.
So they are just left totally unconnected?
Yeah, that's the weakness. The storytelling framework ends far too neatly at resolve. Meanwhile, these highly potent psychological triggers are just left floating in a separate section of the blueprint.
Wow.
Without a specific trigger-based strategy at the point of resolution, the retention strategy halts abruptly at the end of a single video, missing the chance to turn a viewer into a community member.
But I have to push back a little here. If you suddenly stack all these marketing triggers at the very end of a personal vlog, doesn't that risk overwhelming the viewer?
It can, yeah.
I mean, doesn't it feel too salesy? If the brand is authenticity over polish, hitting them with a wall of psychological sales tactics right before the video ends seems counterproductive.
It would be, if done poorly. But my suggestion is to embed specific, subtly sequenced psychological triggers directly into the resolve step to transition the viewer from a single video consumer into a binge watcher, doing so in a way that feels utterly organic to her approachable persona.
Okay, but what does that actually sound like? Give me a concrete example of embedding those without sounding like a late-night infomercial.
Sure. So during the resolve phase, instead of just solving the problem, you activate the identity appeal trigger organically. You look at the camera and say, now that you know this, you're part of the group of everyday Filipinos taking charge of their future.
Oh, I love that. You are giving them a new, empowered label.
Yes. And then you follow this immediately with reciprocity. You say, I just shared my entire 30-day blueprint with you for free. All I ask is that you click this next video to see how I implemented it on day 1.
That is seamless. It completely utilizes the triggers without feeling like a hard sell. It grounds the marketing jargon in a very real human emotion.
Building on that point, what if we looked at it from the perspective of the long-term channel ecosystem rather than just the single video?
Right, because on YouTube, getting a viewer to click from one video immediately into a second video is the holy grail. You don't just want a single view.
Exactly. If they watch one video, feel good for a minute, and then leave to watch someone else, the trust doesn't compound. It resets to 0 for the next upload.
Right, you are constantly fighting for those first 3 seconds again instead of coasting on the momentum of a binge session.
But by embedding these psychological triggers seamlessly into the resolution, you are essentially building a bridge between the videos. You belong here with us to solve the rest of it.
It transforms the end of the video from an exit door into a hallway leading deeper into the house.
Exactly.
Well, this has been an incredibly illuminating breakdown of how to fuse these independent strategies. to concisely recap the 3 structural enhancements we've discussed today to fortify the blueprint.
Go for it.
First, building a transitional anchor between the hook and the relate phase to prevent content whiplash.
Right.
Second, using cascading microloops to sustain long-form pacing. And third, embedding psychological triggers into the final resolve phase to organically drive ecosystem retention.
The foundational material here is incredibly strong. The building blocks are all present.
They really are. We warmly invite the listener to implement these structural tweaks and submit their revised strategy back in for another round of feedback in a future critique. We would absolutely love to see how this evolves as you scale the channel.
Definitely.
Because having powerful hooks is great, but ensuring every single part of the viewer's journey is connected is where the real magic happens.